I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
Did the CIA write Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
As humans busied themselves about the various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied.
Dr. Loeb, what percentage chance do you give it that you have indeed uncovered extraterrestrial or non-human technology?
With infinite complacence, people went about their affairs, yet across an immense ethereal gulf, intellects vast and unsympathetic threw their plans against us.
All of a sudden, a stick out of nowhere landed right in front of us, and there was no tree, nothing overhead. Something threw it at us.
Yeah.
All things unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
Hello, all you unexplained ones out there. Thank you for joining us. We do ask that as you join us on our show, you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We need your help. We want you to like, follow, share, anything that you can do to support our show means the world to us, and we thank you for that. Those of you that are joining us live, we love your comments. We love your questions. We do ask that you type your questions in all caps so we know that they are indeed a question, and we will try to get to those as we can. We have a very exciting show for you tonight. We would not be a podcast about the unexplained if we did not cover the alien mummies. And this is something that has been circling for quite some time now. There has been all sorts of conversation about these alien mummies. There's been memes, there's been jokes, there's been news stories, and we on All Things Unexplained have not covered it yet. We've got some people tuning in live already. Hello to Helen, hello to Nathan. Thank you guys for your comments. Keep them coming. We have a few special guests joining us tonight. So first and foremost, I am CJ Derringer. I've got my co-hosts here, Dr. Tim Mounts, as well as Smitty Neves. Hey, fellas.
What's up?
How's it going? Good to be back.
Yes, it is. Good to be back. And we have our guest today. We've got our good friend of the show, Blake Best. He is a composer, an author, a director, a screenwriter, a musician, a very talented man. I think he's also tall, all of the things. Welcome, Blake.
Thank you for having me. It was very nice. Thank you.
And joining us for the first time is our friend King. I'm going to try and get this right. King Wakata. We met him on X in the UFO spaces talking about the alien mummies, and Dr. Mountains thought he would be a great addition to this show and to this conversation. King, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Yes.
UFO Twitter. And we forgot to mention, by the way, if you listen to this later on audio or wherever, Apple, happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody.
Yes. Yesterday was May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. I saw some fun memes yesterday. May the 4th be with you. And people were like, and also with you, which is a very religious thing to say. And then, Cinco de Mayo today, the Kentucky Derby yesterday. I didn't watch it. Who won? Do we know who won?
I think it was a photo finish, but that's all I know.
Oh.
This is not right, but I want to say cryptid strides, but it might have been something else.
It's Revenge of the Fifth. Was that the name of the horse? This is what we're getting from Nathan from the Quantum Show. Revenge of the Fifth. Is that the name of the horse, or is it because it's the 5th today? I'm not sure. But if somebody's
Revenge of the 5th. No, May the 4th be with you. Today is not Revenge of the Sith, it's Revenge of the 5th.
Oh. I don't understand these.
She's never seen Star Wars, people. She's never seen Star Wars, but she has seen Spaceballs. I thought that was the name of the horse. She has seen, and the Sith aren't in Spaceballs. I don't think so.
I need to get with the program. Wow. All right. It's been
the winner was Mystic Dan. Mystic Dan.
Okay. Good to know. Now we know. All right, Tim, tell us a little bit about how you and King got hooked up on this particular topic and how this show came to be today.
Well, so I've been sneaking into Twitter Spaces for quite a while now. And if folks haven't checked out Twitter Spaces, you can basically follow a particular topic. And I jump into UFO Twitter Spaces quite often. And King he hosts some of these spaces, and I think they're terrific. He hosts great intellectual academic style debates in his spaces, very respectful, very polite, and it's just a great place for experiencers and those looking for more information to go and find out more on a particular topic. And so I've learned that he is very passionate about the alien mummies. And I said, man, you know what? We've got to do the alien mummies, and King knows a lot more than we'll ever know, probably. So here we are.
Yes. Okay, well, perfect. We're going to have King tell us a little bit then about the alien mummies, because I'm ashamed to admit I know so much about ufology now and lots of different people who are involved in it and different stories. The alien mummies, all that I really know about them is that last October, Tim wanted us to go on a news show and bring a cake that looked like an alien mummy and cut into it. Like that's my knowledge of the alien mummies. So King, tell us a little bit about how this whole concept of alien mummies came to be and what it's like in the news today.
Actually, the alien cake meme is probably my favorite one they've ever done. It was whoever did it, chef's kiss. Like, it was a beautiful thing. But no, it's the science that they're doing behind it. It's just like, and it challenges even skeptics. It challenges them, because it's like you have to, if you want to debunk these things, you have to show how they're taking these bones that are supposed to be already 1,000 years old and stripping them of skin, muscle tissue, all that, taking it apart, rearranging them, putting them back together in a way that it sticks and is able to fool, tenured professors from all around the world. Actually, there's over 50 different professors and scientists that have looked at these things.
And so wasn't it a congressman that wanted to submit the alien mummy bones for official record somewhere? Is that how this all was brought back into the public's attention, into the public eye?
Well, Jaime Maussan, he did like a hearing in the Mexican version of like the
Arrow, right? Yeah.
Well, it was more like a Congress, like their version of Congress. And he went up there and he did the presentation, and that's when he brought out the mummies, and he brought out a lot of the data that was done over those 7 years since they were found, 6-7 years. And he was able to show a lot of solid science that, unless you're there to, double test it and do your own version of that, it is solid. It looks good. It looks solid. And they have to do more testing. And right now, the Ministry of Culture, people who are, like Harvard can't come look at them if the Ministry of Culture says no. Like, if they go do it, it's illegal. And the situation is that they have given the bodies to the Inkari Institute, and the Ministry of Culture can't take them from the Inkari Institute until their investigation is done. So that's the loophole that they're using right now.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So did somebody, when you say that he brought them to the Mexican version of Congress, did he physically have the bones, or he was just suggesting that they be entered into the study?
Well, he brought these that you're showing up here now, the two of them. If that's what you're talking about, Maussan, he brought these two to the Congress.
He physically brought them. Okay.
Yeah, he brought them in some box things that were to keep them in good condition. But he brought them and he presented them, and he wanted to do a study. But the Ministry of Culture sued, saying that those were artifacts from, Peru, which they are. So Mexico was like, all right, no, send them back. We can't touch them. It's illegal to touch them, from what I understand. I might be wrong.
What was the initial feedback from everybody after this hearing?
Oh, I'm telling you, the cake meme. That's it was everywhere. Even people that don't pay attention to UFO stuff, it was everywhere. Even my mom posted the cake thing.
Oh my gosh.
So it was everywhere.
And I have to tell you, King, okay, CJ and I did talk about making a alien cake, but we did ultimately veto it. Okay, first of all, I didn't think we had the skills to do it or the funds to hire anybody to do it. And second of all, we're like, you know what? We actually don't want to come off like that. We don't really want to come off as making fun of the topic or as a farce, you know. So we went a different direction. But yeah, I think the cake meme was actually a little bit too bad because, for better or worse, it kind of placed this bias on people.
Yeah, it knocked the winds right out the sails.
Yes. So since then, what's the thought on it now? I mean, here we are 6-7 months later. We're all still talking about these alien mummies. What are the experts saying?
Well, they found a lot of things that are odd, let's say, like strange. That, for example, I'm definitely not a professor in this, so I don't know a lot of the clinical words they use. Sure. But I know that the forearm bone, or whatever this bone is called, that usually has 2 bones for humans, and basically any bony species on the planet, they don't. For their whatever this bone is and the leg bone, it's just one solid bone, which is not seen in anywhere in our evolutionary tract that we have fossils for. So that's something very odd. Another thing is that they've recently found is the spacing in the toes is the proper spacing to distribute the weight, which, you know, if you're going to say somebody faking these things, that's a lot of detail you pay attention to. Another thing, Achilles tendon. Our Achilles tendon connects to our heel, and their Achilles tendon is it kind of goes under inside their heel and connects somehow to one of their main toe bones or something like that. Is very different. And these are things that you look at. Somebody was faking it. The level of knowledge of anatomy you would have to have, it's pretty spectacular.
Yeah. So, Tim, can we go back to slides that you had up? We've got this one here. So can anybody explain to me what we're seeing in these pictures?
I'm not sure which one did. I don't think this might even be one of the real ones. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Tim. Okay. And this one here, this looks like the feet.
Those are actually one of the alleged giant hands.
Hands?
Yeah, okay. Those are hands allegedly belonging to some type of giants. I'm not... they are talking about having one of the heads that's a giant head also, and supposed to be bringing that forward too. And side note about these hands, these things that they have implanted in them, they have something implanted in them, and it has osmium in it. And osmium is very hard to find. And from how old these mummies are, they are way... we didn't discover osmium yet, put it like that.
Okay. Right now, King, they do have 3 fingers, though, isn't that right? I think they have 3.
Yeah. No. I'm not particularly familiar with this exact mummy. It could be one of the real ones. They have 9 different ones, so I haven't really been.
I see.
Oh, interesting. Okay, now who's the guy? And go back one again, Tim, for those that are listening and not watching. We're looking at what seems to be images. Enlarged images of these hands. And who is the gentleman in the white coat? Does anybody know who that is?
No.
Somebody obviously
no,
just presenting.
I think he would. Now this, I'm going to advance it to this slide here. I think this is from perhaps the presentation at the Mexican conference where Ryan Graves was. Is that right? Probably right, King?
So that could be maybe Dr. Zuniga, I think is pronounced. He's one of the doctors that have been intimately involved with this. So off the face, I don't really, I'm horrible with names that way. But yeah, a lot of these doctors are, tenured doctors that have been doing this for 20 plus years. And dealing with something like this is basically throwing your career away if it comes out like it's a fraud. Like, you'll never be respected in these type of academic circles.
Yeah, one thing I think people don't realize is how small they are. Because when you just look at the picture, I think a lot of people in their mind see a human-sized being, but they're actually quite small. And here we see in this picture, what do you think, like 2.5 foot long, maybe?
Yeah, I think the tallest one might be close to 3 feet, if that.
Yeah, I mean, from this picture, what we're looking at looks like a large cat to me, and size-wise, a humanoid figure.
Well,
but
I think what you're looking at in the picture, within the picture here, that might be the contents of the eggs.
Oh, that's right, because they found some eggs, right?
Yeah, I believe.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Have they done any DNA testing on any of this material?
Yes, they have done several DNA tests, but one of the problems was that the let's say the library that they have isn't wide enough. It's too narrow. They need something with a bigger thing to, I guess, go against to see what it might be.
Nothing to compare it to.
Right, sort of that. So they need something with a bigger library. They did, or they are able to say that everything in it is organic, which is actually very big. Because they even checked the eggs, and they said it was like calcium and things like that you would find inside of an egg that's turning into whatever it's turning into. And they do have these they calling them the hybrids, that they're like 5'4" or something like that. They're like human sized, with Maria, which is one of the more famous ones.
Well, do they think the smaller ones are children, or they just think they might be different species?
Yes, that's what they're saying. There's different species.
And we actually have some really great comments right now. Listener Nathan from the Quantum Show, he says, the mummies seem real to me. Peru is making a lot of noise to get them back. Would they do that if they were fake? I think that's a great point, King. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think this has a lot to do with like internal politics, egos, things of that nature. Because if it was just up to the scientists, I think they would all come together and work together. I think it's a lot to do with Mario, that's known for being a grave robber. He's a tomb raider, and they don't like him. They know him. They know his name. So they already didn't like him from the beginning, and I'm sure he didn't make new fans with this,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And
1 second, I'll be right back.
Okay.
My charger.
So,
and he brought up the word Mario. I think he's talking about Jaime Maussan.
I don't know who that is, so fill me in.
So Jaime Maussan, he's the Mexican ufologist that presented these mummies to the public, right?
And were all of these mummies found in Peru?
I think that they are all purported to come from Peru. Now, I think where people get confused is that this latest set were revealed to the public at a Mexican UFO conference. And that's where the waters got muddied a little, because there were some people who were caught off guard by the presentation of these alien mummies, people like Ryan Graves. And thanks, Nathan. Yes, Jaime is the head ufologist in Mexico. But Ryan Graves, of course, he's one of our fighter pilots that had the authenticated military UAP encounters. Welcome back, King. And so that muddied the waters a little bit at this Mexican conference, right? When you had people there like Ryan Graves, and they were taken aback, I guess you say, or said that they were caught by surprise. And I know King knows a little bit more on that. But King, I wanted to get you to address this question. I think it's not really a question, but a comment from Helen of Crystals, who says, I think they're genuine old mummies. I don't know if they're aliens, but she followed that up with this. I wonder if they are from an ancient civilization experimenting with hybrids.
It's a scary thing, but at this point, it's possible. Like, we have to sit down and play with ideas of things that explain it. The most logical would be just saying these are cryptoterrestrials, a species that might have evolved alongside with us. But from there, we got to see what evidence we can find, and then we can move over and play with different ideas. But they are already throwing that idea that it might have been experiments that were being done by someone else. It's not hard to take these leaps once you start looking at everything and you start seeing the patterns. And I heard you asking about Mario. Mario is the gentleman that found the mummies. Maussan.
Oh.
Maussan came into this because Tahir Jamin, he's an archaeologist. He's a French archaeologist, and he's the one that actually they came to him with the mummies first, Mario. And Jamim went to the Ministry of Culture before anybody else. And when he went to them, they turned him away. They didn't even want to see him. Once they knew Mario was involved in all that, they just wanted nothing to do with it. So that's when he decided to reach out to the media, and he reached out to several people, and Musan was the one that went down there.
Why do you think it's so hard for people to accept that these might be real?
It could be a multitude of things. Number one, actually in the space yesterday, somebody said, for me, it's just they seem too incredible to be true. And whatever he needs for it to be, quote unquote evidence, it still hasn't passed that threshold. He himself said, I don't know what that evidence is, but that threshold hasn't been crossed. And I can accept that. I can say, you know what, the science is being done, more stuff will come out, and maybe at some point people will reach that threshold.
Yeah, it's tough because I feel like we believe so easily in other things, right? For the most part, everybody grows up believing what they're told without much question. It's not really until later in life that any of us start to question anything. But for some reason, this particular topic, everybody comes from the exact opposite end and just instantly disbelieves. And I know that that's been something that's been building over time. So when you say I have alien mummies, that's hard for some people to think about. Even when I heard this topic, again, I first heard it from Tim in the form of like, let's make an alien mummy cake and go on this news show. And so it was all sort of sensationalized to me from the very beginning, that when people started asking me that maybe aren't in this sphere with us, like, oh, did you hear about those alien mummies? I didn't really know how to respond. Like, were they going to think I was crazy if I did believe or thought more into it? I'm not sure. But this topic, the alien mummies, seems to be even more taboo than just aliens.
Yeah, people have they tend to want to look around first and see how's everybody reacting before I get into this and all that. And yeah, it's easy to run with the headlines, but I think the headlines are going to start turning. Musan just said that I believe Ross Cohart in News Nation might be about to have a interview or a special with Dr. John McDowell, who has taken the position of head research leader or whatever you want to call it for the investigation into the mummies. Dr. McDowell is very well accredited. He got some award for, like, he got a record amount of peer-reviewed studies when it comes to like medicine and anatomy and that type of stuff. So the dude, like, is A1. His credentials are like beyond reproach, and he's gonna be taking the lead on this. And yeah, let him go. Let him just do his thing.
Yeah, that sounds like it would certainly bring credibility to this topic. We have some people that are adding to our chat here, really thought-provoking comments and questions, and we do appreciate you guys joining in with us in this particular topic. Most of you that are tuning in right now probably know more than me, so send us your information. I learn from you every single day, so thank you for those comments, Joe. I've been reading some of yours as Tim's been sticking them on the screen, and some definitely thought-provoking ideas in there. Tim, what has been your take? I've never even asked you about the alien mummies, to be honest. And here it's a topic that anybody that has a show about unexplained things have covered. And it's new territory for me. So tell me what has kept you so interested in them.
Well, to be honest, it just hasn't went away, right? I mean, it's a hot topic. I admit I was a little bit trepidatious of it, but I trepidatious from, I think, the same skeptical, analytical point of view that we tend to take most of this stuff at, right? Not doubtful, and of course, when we do a show on some of these topics, we want to be open-minded. We want to present the story to people and let people make of it, what they will. Let them decide for themselves, right? But I think part of it for me, it's just such a wild story because it could be a movie. I mean, you have so many moving parts, so many characters. You've got this character Jaime Maussan involved, and I mean, he's got a little bit of Barnum brothers in him, right? A little bit of Ringling, is that his name? Who's the greatest showman?
Oh, P.T.
P.T.
Barnum.
Barnum.
P.T. Barnum. He's got a little P.T.
New York
Barnum in
City.
him, right? And I'm not even saying that's a bad thing, right? Because honestly, a lot of our biggest celebrities in ufology right now do have some P.T. Barnum, whether we're talking about Jeremy Corbell or George Knapp. I mean, some of our most respected ones, Avi Loeb, Gary Nolan, right? Kevin Knuth, he's on documentaries now. Diana Pasulka, it just is about to make a television show about her books, American Cosmic. And by the way, this show's going to be fictionalized, but we're told that the books are nonfiction, right? And we're supposed to believe them. So to me, it's fascinating. It's more of a real life drama with more twists and turns than you could write. You couldn't write a story this crazy and this fantastical. So I did want to ask King something. And King, thanks so much for being here. We are so honored to have King Wakata here with us and Blake Best. King, we recently had Kevin Knuth on, physicist. Kevin Knuth, he spoke at the Soul Foundation. And he told me, it's not so easy to determine if anything is extraterrestrial because everything in the whole universe is made up of the same elements. And not only that, but the same isotopes. So if we literally had an alien mummy or an alien craft, we still might not be able to figure out for 100% certainty if it is alien. Okay. So King, how do you think? I think this actually lends some support for the alien mummies. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, technically, let's say, these things have a bone density that's very close to a velociraptor. As hilarious as it sounds, look it up. I'm not lying. Like avian or a velociraptor is the example that was given. But what if these things do come from a lineage of dinosaur that survived and evolved into something else? And look how quickly we evolved just in the last 100 years. Now imagine a thing has 3 million years before we even pop up. What can they get done? And then what if they left and came back and now we're here and they're like, oh, what the hell is this? Who came in our house? Who's the ET here? So yeah, it's a very hard thing to tell. And the alien thing is just a good way to get eyeballs on it. Whether you think they're crypto-terrestrial or aliens, I just want to get the science done because I think we're going to learn a whole lot about our history, let alone how the universe might work from these things.
Certainly.
I agree.
The learning is what it's all about. We got to keep an open mind and evolve every single day. And that's what we love about this show, right? Is having these conversations and thinking outside of ourselves and thinking about the universe. And for those that are joining us live, thank you so much. Please do subscribe and like and share and follow so that we can continue having these conversations and keeping our minds moving into the next phase so we can figure it out. Sorry, Tim, I cut you off.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say that something I've been thinking a lot about lately is something else Kevin Knuth told us. And he told us that, where do the people, the beings that control UFOs, UAPs, where are they? Are they coming from another part of the universe? Are they coming from outer space? He said, actually, the evidence suggests they're already here. They're just here somewhere. Maybe it's underwater. Maybe it's underground. Maybe and I don't want to give a teaser for something I'm going to ask later, but maybe they're cloaked when they're not underwater or underground. But I've been thinking about that a lot lately, King, and what the ramifications for that are. Maybe they're just here already. And I think that lends some validity to the possibility of some discoveries like the alien mummy. So if I had to ask you what your guess for the origins of these things, or what would your guess be?
I mean, I think right now is a great time to start looking back on, native tales and old stories, because there seems to be some type of origin to all these myths and all these fairy tales. It seems like there were actually something to it. So, we've always heard of the Hopi and native tribes from South America have stories of ant people that live underground, that when you look at their depictions look very similar to these things. Japan has statues to these things that they have that live underground, and they look very close to these things. It's we got Atlantis, a civilization so advanced they decided to go in the ocean, or they got swallowed up by the ocean. Maybe there is something to these things, and over the long telephone game that is history and humanity, things get changed, but the core story that there's somebody in the ocean stays there. Somebody's underground. That core story is still there. So we need to start looking back on these things and reanalyzing them.
Mounts, when you said that about the living among us, that always makes me think of course it's fictionalized, but do you remember the TV show V? That everybody, they were appearing as human beings, but they were actually aliens. I always was obsessed with that show when I was younger.
Oh, yeah. And let's not forget one of our favorite movies here at All Things Unexplained. And something one of our listeners said a while ago made me think of this movie. I'm having a hard time finding it, but of course we have a quote from that movie right here.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
All out of bubblegum, folks. And that's from Rowdy Roddy Piper. And they live, of course, in a very dystopian setting in society, right? Where all of a sudden he puts on the shades one day and boom, he's surrounded by aliens. And King, I kind of feel like we're heading toward that road. I don't know when it's going to happen, but what do you think? I feel like something big is set up to happen.
Well, I mean, again, I like looking at patterns, and right now, all the things that are coming out is best to look back in history and looking back on people that were coming from the inside or saying they were coming from the inside. A lot of people have this, 2027, 2030 date that allegedly is supposed to be some type of countdown. And we look at it ever since Grush came out, there's a lot of moving parts. We can say Elizondo in 2017 started this whole thing. But since Grush came out, it's just a lot of moving parts. You're starting to see the whole UFO subject become very commercial. Super Bowl had like 4 commercials with ETs and UFOs in it. So I think, maybe it is slow drip and controlled disclosure. They're just letting out one piece at a time.
I'm curious, both for you, King, and for those that are tuning in with us on YouTube or Twitter, wherever you are following us, what got you into this topic? So those that are listening, type in the comments what got you into this topic, and King, what got you into this topic? Because you know a lot about it.
Well, I started with Bill Cooper, and he had this whole thing about secret societies, and that was my thing. I liked the idea of secret societies, so I want to study it and learn about them. And also Bill Cooper spoke about aliens. I listened to it, but I never really gave it much thought. I was like, oh, aliens, cool, whatever. He already talks about weird things with secret society, so I never really put too much thought into it. And after 2017, I just started like the government is saying these things now. And I started, looking back, and I had already heard about Bob Lazar. And you just start re-looking at all of these old things I had seen, and now it starts making more sense. So then I start looking a little further back, and we can go back to 1561 with the situation. I forgot over where it's at. It's a famous event, but people were seeing things in the sky back in 1561.
Wow.
Yes.
No airplanes then. So so yeah, but Bill Cooper for me was how I got into all of this stuff.
Very cool. Blake, how about you? How did you get into this world?
Well, honestly, sort of by accident. The nature of what I do, working in writing and in the film industry, I was exposed a lot to later in my life into like science fiction, horror, that kind of thing. But I think growing up, what got it for me was there were like these mysteries of the unexplained, like these Forrest Ackerman, Arthur C. Clarke kind of books and things that kind of got me into that. And I remember reading about something called the Tunguska event, which happened, I believe, in 1908, where all of a sudden there was this fireball that kind of appeared over the sky that crashed in Siberia and left this deep impression in the earth. And they really didn't honestly know what it was. And then, of course, Flight 19, the disappearance of Flight 19 and the purported connection between that and UFOs. And, of course, Close Encounters of the Third Kind movie-wise. And I think what got me into the modern-day idea of aliens and, UFOs, unexplained phenomena, and the government's involvement was when Chris Carter premiered The X-Files in 1993. That, the truth is out there. That line stuck with me so much so that I really kind of felt like I wanted to take up the mantle of, and crusade about that and kind of be a spokesperson on things that are unexplained. Obviously, I focus a lot more on like water cryptids and things like that, but the alien thing has always been there. I had an encounter with an unexplained aerial phenomenon back in 1996 as a child, and it kind of stuck with me ever since then. And by that point, the X-Files had kind of already been there and started touching on the shadow government and the hiding of things and what we know there, and then the Mayan calendar and how those events are happened there. And then it all kind of started with the X-Files and Fox Mulder and Scully and that cigarette smoking man. That sort of all kind of that kind of all kind of clinched it for me. So I think it would be foolish of us to think that we are the smartest thing out here. That would be very foolish and very selfish and egotistical. The universe is huge, and I mean, obviously, there's been all these reports, and things have been declassified. Project Blue Book and so many of these other things, and I mean, they're here, and I mean, the government shouldn't think that we're surprised. We knew they were here years ago when we were being told that there were weather balloons or strange weather phenomena or testing of military items that were not widely known to the public. That's what I always said. I mean, it's not like we didn't know they were here. It's like you're admitting they're here, but we already knew they were. So, and I think it's just a fascination thing. Joe actually mentioned in one of his comments, he was talking about the civilizations and the hybrids. And I think that goes back to what King was talking about and what Tim was talking about the different sizes of these remains, hybridization, and of course Atlantis. And I really think that it goes back further than we'll ever understand. I mean, I've studied biblical references in Ezekiel. To me, it sounds like what is described in some of those passages are UFOs. The chariot of fire with the revolving lights and the multi-headed creatures and things like that. I really think that what we're getting a taste of there is extraterrestrial life.
Yeah, we've heard that reference many times on this show. And well, I'm going to throw it to Smitty here. So Smitty, in terms of, let's go back to the alien mummies specifically. What was your initial thought when you heard about these alien mummies? What's your thought currently?
I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about it, but I think it is interesting that it has been so perpetuated in the press, and that this man thought that he had such a legitimate artifact on his hands that he brings us before the highest level of the government in Mexico. I mean, it's pretty impressive if you think about it. I don't think if he thinks that everyone's going to think he's a charlatan, he would bring this before the Congress. I mean, that would be something that you might see at a carnival when we were kids in the 1980s. You go in these places and pay your $1 and see the Fish Woman, or P.T. Barnum actually had a half monkey, half mermaid. It's like the Fiji mermaid, where he sewed a monkey to a fishtail. But to bring it before a government leaders it seems to lend some credence to it. I just need to do some more investigating in it. I'm not as well versed, obviously, as King on it, and probably not as well as Mounts either. But I think it's super interesting because, as a history teacher, of course, I've gone over Egyptian mummification, and I want to know what the implications, what King believes the implications of the mummification process for these beings are.
That's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's not really mummification. It's more like a desecration. Like they're dried out. They still have their insides. They still, the new mummy that was brought out, Montserrat, was pregnant with like actual pregnant with a baby in gestation, and it was to the point that they were able to see the hand and realize it was a tridactyl hand in the stomach. And you can go to the Alien Project. I'm not happy with the name, but it's a catchy, like the back to the carnival barking thing.
Right.
But you go there, and this is a study by Tahir Jamin. He's the French archaeologist who originally came across these things. He's doing his own separate investigation at the same time as Musan is doing his. So for all the people who are worried about Musan, you don't have to follow his investigation. Tahir Jamim is doing his own, and he's putting everything on the Alien Project. And instead of space, you do a dash, the-alien-project.com. And you can find everything in there, from the DNA to the carbon-14 dating to the CT scan, X-rays, breakdown about the Achilles tendon I gave you guys, about the heel bones and how they're different in size. They do away with the llama skull thing. They finally get rid of that. Yeah, man, the weird thing is that it doesn't seem that they were mummified. It looks more like they were just covered with this diatomaceous earth and left there.
Yeah. And
Like,
to speak on what you're talking about, being a history teacher and the historian of the show, all ancient Egyptian mummies had their organs removed. You know, they were placed in canopic jars. Even the brain, you know, was placed, or actually the brain was actually removed from the body and thrown away if it could be. But the other ones, canopic jars, were placed there, and the body cavity was filled with other things. And so that's pretty interesting that these still have the organs.
They have all their organs inside and everything. It was like I said, I said, okay, they're calling them mummies, but they're not mummies. These are really just dried out, desecrated bodies, I believe is called the term. But yeah.
It reminds me of the woolly mammoths, right? When we find whole woolly mammoths.
With grass still in the mouth, and we were trying to figure out how could something freeze that fast.
Yes. Woolly mammoths fascinate me. Did you hear that they were trying to reintroduce woolly mammoths into society? Like it's unreal. That's a whole other topic. Okay. So let's talk about if these alien mummies are real. What is the thought process on what happened? Do we think, and of course, this is pretty much just speculation at this point, right? And there could be 1,000 different answers to this question. But are they thinking that there was a race of aliens living here on Earth, or that there was some sort of crash landing? Were they all close together? Were they spread out?
Well, it kind of lends itself to the idea. Bob Lazar, he mentioned that they might have found these in an archaeological dig. So what's stopping from saying the United States already has these type of bodies? And in that same place they found it, they found this craft. Like if you know, it could tie into a lot of different things and a lot of different ways. So yeah.
So you mentioned that like new bodies are being introduced to the public. Are they all coming from Peru? Or are they all coming from a very close geographical site?
Yes. The gentleman Mario who found them, there's different sites. He's given up 2 or 3 sites. The last site he's given up, 2 of them were empty. One of them he left a mummy and a couple things in there for Jamin to find. He told them where it was at to find, and he told him that he left stuff there so he can find it. He went in there, and he found what they're calling Inkuri. It looks like a small little thing, but it has these proto wings sticking out the back, almost like it had wings.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's just like, for me, the putting these things together idea, it doesn't fit because the sheer quantity. He says he has about 100, and he said 7 different species. We've only seen 3. The little short ones that we see as cake. Then we have Moria, who they call the hybrid, and then this next one that they're calling the insectoid because it has like these little insect wings.
Okay, 100. And Helen of Crystals is agreeing there's around 100 of them. That sounds like a lot. If they came from a spacecraft, that's a fairly large spacecraft.
Well, we know that they laid eggs, some of them, and we know that the hybrids were given birth to human young. So, like these things were being worshipped. That's how our ancestors see them. We see it in the art from Peru. Like these were their gods.
So some of them laid eggs, and some of them were giving birth to live species.
Yes, that's what we found with Montserrat, which it was like even the way the mummy was found, it seemed like it was like holding its belly when it passed away. Yeah, the quote unquote hybrids were apparently given natural birth, and the cake mummies and the insect mummies were laying eggs.
Interesting. You would think that if some civilization from another planet was going to make it this far, that they would have to sort of have a hybrid version of themselves to make it, right? Like humans are going to have to probably be a hybrid with artificial intelligence if we're ever going to make it to another planet. So
to speak about the hybrid, I don't know if you know this, but during World War II, the Russians tried to take a human and chimpanzee and come up with a super soldier that was half ape and half human being. Whether they were successful,
yeah, how'd that go for them?
I don't know.
What year was this?
And then we started seeing
was in
Bigfoot.
the 40s, so 1940s.
When did Sasquatch start popping up?
Yeah, exactly. That was my thought too.
Don't get us started.
And this is a good time to transition to our cryptozoologist expert, Blake. And I know Tim has some questions for him, so I'm going to toss it your way, Tim.
Well, and we're so pleased to have Blake Best with us tonight. First of all, Blake, can you tell everybody where's the best website to get more information about you and check out all your stuff?
Oh, I appreciate that. I'm kind of all over the place. So I've got obviously my public figure page on Facebook, my personal page there. You just search Blake Best. I'm a 6'4" Korean guy with a nose ring. I'm really hard to miss. So you can find me there. And then of course I've got a website. It's blakebestauthor.wixsite.com/Blake Best Horror. And that's got my books, the scores I've done for TV and film. It's got some projects I've produced. It's got just kind of everything I've ever done is kind of all right there. And then I'm constantly making announcements all over social media, the social media that I use anyway, which is mostly Facebook and Instagram.
And of course, Blake, you're the author of one of my favorite books, Fathom. And it's dealing with the Loch Ness Monster out in Scotland.
That's a great cover.
It really is. And I've got a lot of stuff here from Blake Best, and we got a couple of other books here that people could check out from Blake, Save Me Now and Night Terrors. And Blake mentioned before the show, this is the 40th anniversary of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes, it is. And that's really kind of you to share that. So Save Me Now, actually, that's the album I just put out. So I just put that out 2 weeks ago. And then it's kind of been blowing up. And it's got that music, actually, that you've been using on the show, Horizon.
Such good music.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, so it's like Loch Ness. The Loch Ness Monster was kind of a topic near and dear to my heart. Again, same kind of vein, cryptozoology. But again, it's like a lot of people, I feel like with the UFO believers and Bigfoot believers, it's like we come under fire a lot, about what it is we believe. And who's to say, honestly, they're continuing to find things all the time. I always go back to this example. In 1938, a couple of fishermen were fishing off the Indian Ocean, and they netted a coelacanth, which is over 6 foot long, with spikes, and that fish was supposed to be extinct for 70 million years. And yet they found a whole nest of them, in that area where they were doing shrimping, and they found them alive and well. So if something like that can survive, what's to say something like a plesiosaur or a zeuglodon or a Bigfoot or an alien could not survive? And I just tell people, look to the skies, keep an open mind, and follow your heart when it comes to these things. You know better than anybody else what you've seen, and nobody can take those experiences from you. I mean, one of my favorite films, Fire in the Sky, a terrifying story, Travis Walton, but he stuck with his beliefs and he stood by what he said, despite what anybody else thought. And I think that takes a real hero to be able to stand behind your words like that, and believe in those things.
We had him on the show. He's 100% believable.
Yeah,
Everybody should go watch that show with him that we had. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? The thing with Travis, a shout out to Travis Walton, who was so kind to join us on the show one night. That event was traumatizing. Okay. His friends were about to be charged with murder. It ruined all of their lives. They gained nothing from it. And I think that is the unfortunate side effect of a lot of these things in the UFO phenomenon.
Well,
Now,
Travis actually said he wished it would have never happened to him.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
it's done nothing but mess with his whole life.
And y'all, one of the best things that Travis said that night, this was kind of a moment of humor out of nowhere, but CJ asked him if he had had any other UFO encounters, and he had. So on the way back from a conference one night, he was with his son, and they were driving down the highway. It might have been California.
It was California.
Yeah. And they had an encounter with one of these triangular shaped craft in the sky that we hear a lot of reports of, right? And his son said, "Dad, let's pull over, check it out." Dad was like, "No, I think we're just gonna keep going." we didn't have enough of that. We didn't have enough of that. So Blake Best is with us tonight. In addition to King Wakata, we're so thankful. King Wakata, and we're so thankful for both of them. I think I nailed it this time. Wakata. And I know I got King mostly right, at least. And Blake Best is with us. And Blake is not just an author. He's also an actor and not just a cryptozoologist, but he's also a musician. And folks, if you tuned in at the very beginning of the show, you heard this incredible song, Horizon, by Blake Best. And really good. I thought this is rocking, but he's not just rocking either, because this one is a little one called Another Way. Like, can y'all hear this? Another Way?
Mm-hmm. I certainly can.
I think this is a great tune. And here's one called Can't You?
This is cool. This is a little slower for you.
I like the head banging song.
As a composer, that's one of the things. I'm sent a script and they say we've got this kind of feel for scenes 37 through 40. It's going to be somber. The character's going to be thinking about something that happened in the past and equating that to now. And so they give me those descriptions, and based on the dialogue and the stage directions and what's in the screenplay, I sit down and go to work. That piece right there took me 10 minutes to write, what you're listening to right
What?
now.
That's it? You're so talented.
10 minutes. I was in the mood. It was an acoustic guitar, and then I grabbed the piano.
It's getting very loud, Tim.
Sorry about that.
It's rocking though, even to be more laid back. It's a rocker. So.
Yes, it's really good.
And we have one more here from Blake called Worth Fighting.
Oh, worth fighting for. Yeah.
Worth Fighting For. How's that volume?
That's okay, I think.
I think this is a pretty catchy one too. Worth Fighting. And again, Blake, if people want to check out your music, where can they do that at?
it's on my website. The albums, the record label pushed it out 2 weeks ago, so it's on all streaming platforms. Support an artist, somebody that's out there touring and doing things. It's on iTunes, it's on Apple Music, it's on Amazon, it's on Spotify.
And they just look for Blake Best.
They can just look for Blake Best. There's two new albums on there. That one that came out a couple of weeks ago, and then one that came out last year, towards the middle of last year. So. And there's singing and stuff on some, and then some are just instrumental. So far, what you all played tonight has been instrumental stuff, but it's some of my favorites. So
That's great, and we're joined tonight by Blake Best and King Wakata. And we had to say it real fast. I learned a long time ago. If you're not quite sure what to say, just say it super fast. And we talk about everything from Bigfoot to UFOs and aliens and UAPs and everything in between. And if that kind of thing is for you, and you want to support the show, there's a few ways you can do that. Number one, you can use the super chat. You can use the super stickers. That's right next to the chat bar in YouTube. Later on, you can go back and do super thanks, and we really appreciate it. You can visit our YouTube store. That's a great way to support the show. We've got hats. We've got coffee mugs, hoodies, and slides. Anybody know what slides are?
I know what they are.
Okay. They're not called slides. They're called sandals.
They go on your feet, and they don't have a thing that goes between your toes. But that's on our YouTube store, and you can also support the show at BigfootUFO.com.
And BigfootUFO.com has links to our books, right?
Yes, links to all our books. I'm an author, professor, narrator. Smitty's got some books out there too, and quite successful ones, by the way, and you can find all of them on there. And King, is there anywhere you'd like to direct people to visit and find out more about you?
Just hit my X Twitter. I hate calling the X. Sorry, Eli. At Ghetto Bitcoiner. And yeah, man, hosting spaces. I like to speak to all types of people. You guys give me way too much credit. I'm not a super smart person. I ask and I learn things, and I'm happy I'm able to come here and teach you guys a little bit of what I've learned from speaking to other people.
The fact that you are constantly trying to learn things makes you much smarter than most of the population. So
thank you.
That's right, lifelong learner. And Blake and King, would y'all be up for a few listener questions here?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to bring some of these up, and Smitty and or CJ are going to call them out. And
Smitty, you take number one.
I think this is a great question here from Sarah UFO fan.
Sarah UFO fan says, King, were the mummification of aliens perpetuated by humans who found their bodies at a crash site or by their own kind? Which is a great question, by the way.
Were the mummification of the aliens perpetuated? I don't know that I understand the question.
In other words, did a human do this to their bodies, or did the aliens bury their bodies?
Right. That's a good question. I don't know. I feel like I think humans would have paraded them out a bit more. Like, these are our gods or something. Built memorials to them. This might have been by their very own people. Like, because the caves were closed down, so it was hard to get to them remote. So they might have that could have been like a burial place for those peoples, because apparently it's different sites with different numbers. So it might have been like different, I don't know, tribes. If these things had tribes, different burial grounds for their tribes.
Blake, you got any thoughts on this?
Sure. I mean, and it was a good question. Honestly, but I mean, while if we were going to assume that these were faked, which I don't assume that at all, the techniques can be done to age things and relic things like that. Like, obviously, I've had some guitars and things that were made to look 70, 80 years old when they were in fact mass produced, just like 5 or 6 years ago. But it's a specific technique called relicking. But the way those bodies looked, that very much to my eye looked like that was not something created by a person. That was exposure to the elements and lack thereof, both. Because as King said, it looked like a desiccation, which is what a spider does. It drains a body of its, of the fluid of whatever it's catching, whether it's a fly or another insect, and leaves the husk there. And that's what this looks like. with the organs intact. The only thing missing is the fluid in the body, the blood, or whatever life force it had. So honestly, I think that that's something that was naturally done to my eye. Having seen a lot of strange things in this world, I have no doubt in my mind that those look authentic and like they were just made, that they were just found that way, and unearthed and then brought like that. Because why risk it? Why risk making something look tampered with if you want it to have validity in whatever community you're taking it to, whether it be cryptozoological or scientific community? If it looks tampered with, that's going to raise eyebrows right off the bat. But if it looks natural, there's going to be less question about the authenticity of the item and more questions about what it is as opposed to whether it's real or not.
Wow, that's well said, Blake. And I just have to say before I move on to the next question for CJ, it reminds me when we talk about these ancient and biblical peoples that worshipped other gods, right? And some of these were paraded around, and I find it hard to believe that all of these were just like golden calves, right? I just don't believe. I think it's quite possible that there were some literal beings from ancient times that were being worshipped as gods or rulers or leaders. So, very interesting. And here's our next listener question. I think this one is specifically for King.
Okay, from Hector Sanchez, what is the strongest proof that the alien mummies are legit?
I said when you look at it all together, in order to make these mummies, you would have to find bones that are, a certain density. They're not the same density as human. They're less dense. You would have to find certain bones that we don't see in nature, like the small ones. Their rib cages, they're like fully circled around. They're not like ours, and they have different number of ribs. It's not uniform. Like one can have 8 ribs, the other one has 11. Then you have to think about how would you strip these bones to add this muscle, soft tissue, joints, cartilage. You got to get all this stuff to stick together. Then you got to get a skin to go over all of this. And it's a reptile skin. It's not even like a human skin. You have to get some type of skin to go over this and not have seams, sutures, or any of that anywhere on it. And don't forget nails. It's just, and on top of that, it's like when you look at it completely, in order to make what we might be able to bring back a person from the dead if we had the technology to make this good of a fake.
And I do want to encourage people before I go on the next question, jump on Twitter, X, okay? Find a UFO Twitter space. Find one either with King Wakata in it or hosted by King Wakata, and plant yourself, because you might be in there for 11 hours. But you're going to hear some good stuff, okay? And you're going to hear some good, deep, probing conversation on this topic. We won't get into the 11-hour space right now, but King knows what I'm talking about. And King, I've heard you talk about this next listener question that Smitty's going to bring to you quite a bit. So here we go.
And I want to say first, I think King's very well spoken, very articulate, and I think it sounds like you know a whole lot about this. I'd say you're expert on this area. But Miles Rifkin asked, do you know if the Mexican/Peruvian governments will release the mummies to the United States for examination?
Oh, fingers crossed on this side. But yeah, the situation, like I said, it seems to be a lot of egos involved. I would say if you're here in the USA and you really want to try to do something and not just stand, I would say what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start reaching out to the United States ambassador for Peru and try to reach out to them and try to see if, even by email, I can be like, hey, do you have a position on the mummies? Can you try to talk to the, your counterparts to see if we can get something going? We have a good doctor, Dr. John McDowell, and he has 2 other doctors. God, I'm mad that I can't remember their name right now. But both of these guys have worked for the DOD and State Department on different contracts for they're like a forensic ontologist or pathologist and stuff like that. So these ain't people to sneeze at. And yeah, I think I hope they let the United States examine them. We need it.
Indeed. And let's see here. This one is for Blake. So Blake, I think it's CJ's turn to take one. This is a great question for Blake. I hope he's ready for this.
Alien Fan 89. Out of all the things you've accomplished in multiple genres, Blake, what do you consider to be your greatest accomplishment?
That's a good question. That is a very good question. Whoever that is, Alien Fan 89, you come prepared, and I don't like it. No, no. I'm all joking aside. That's a very good question. Out of all the things I've accomplished, I think the greatest accomplishment specifically came in 2016 when I was inducted into the Hall of Fame with John Carpenter and Lon Chaney's family for the first 3 books I put out. That was the biggest accomplishment that I could have ever asked for. To be mentioned in the same sentences as those incredible people, those incredible geniuses and artists, people with a real vision and a way to execute it. I think that's the biggest compliment I could have ever gotten. As far as musically, I think getting on stage and playing with Five Finger Death Punch and Trust Company was a pretty awesome musical experience, getting to live that life. And then, of course, making movies. I love doing that. But picking up props, I think the coolest thing I've ever done was pick up those screen use props from Nightmare on Elm Street, as far as a collector, point of view is concerned. But that's a good question. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Well, I have to tell you, Blake, Brandon Fugel would be jealous of some of your Nightmare on Elm Street props. So we had Brandon Fugel on with us. What was it, last week, CJ?
Mhm.
And before the season 5 premiere of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, and a listener asked him, about his private collection. He has a private collection that you might not expect, and among the things in his private collection is one of the Chuckies. I'm pretty sure the original Chucky, and the box from Hellraiser.
The Lament configuration.
The
yes.
Lament configuration is owned by Brandon Fugel. I mean,
and the Bible from Shawshank Redemption.
Yes.
Very cool. One of the best movies of the 90s.
Yes.
I dare say of all time.
Oh, yeah.
So
And
we're
by
actually
Stephen
waiting on
King.
any day now for our invitation to Skinwalker Ranch. So I think Blake and King should come along with us if we get invited. And that would be pretty fun. Blake, you'll have to bring along some of your props. I think that Brandon would be all about that.
Oh, I'm
That's
sure.
our
I don't
ticket
know. He's
in.
got some cool stuff. I don't know if those Freddy gloves I have and the prosthetics to match up to the Lament configuration and the Chucky. Oh, I don't know. That'd be fun, though.
Might not be a good idea to take those on the ranch, though, because apparently the ranch reacts to whatever kind of vibe you bring on there. So we might, I don't know, we might want to find a different prop, like maybe Gandalf's cane or something to take on there. I'm just wondering. So we have one more listener question, and this one is going to be for King, I feel like. And before I'll just put it up there.
X-Files 102 says, King, have there been any of these mummies found anywhere else in the world? We focused solely on those. I think they're asking on another continent.
That we know of, no. We don't. We haven't found anything like this anywhere. But we do have indications of places that we might be able to start looking. According to the skin, they don't sweat, so they might live in very hot and dry climates. So if there's any would-be archaeologists out there, start looking for dry climates and high places, and apparently that's where these things like to be at.
Well, we've had a former guest on the show that I think is in a perfect situation to look for more of these types of relics, and that is Noah Stricker. CJ will remember Noah. He's the Michael Jordan of birding.
The birding guy. Yeah, he was so great.
You might wonder, what does the Michael Jordan of birding know about aliens? But he spends most of his time in Antarctica. And I'm going to tell you, I think there's some truths to be discovered in Antarctica. I mean, you're talking about an ice sheet hundreds of feet or more thick. And who knows? Who knows what's under there? And then we have these stories, of admirals going down there in the 50s or before and getting swallowed up into strange portals to other realms. I mean, we got some major stuff going on in Antarctica, I think.
I
Well,
think my favorite transition that's ever happened on this show is look in hot, dry places, and you say, about that, Antarctica.
Hey, I mean, I'm just saying, different species. I'm not going to say we're going to find the cake mummies down there, but maybe something else.
has anybody else thought of this? When I started researching these mummies, about the Easter Island carvings. I mean, they have very similar look about them, and I thought that was awful strange because they're coming from, South America and that area. So
Yeah, well, I know that in Japan they have these little carvings, old school little carvings of different, humanoid type things, and when you look at them, they are very similar to what you see with the Nazca mummies. Like you can put the art of the Nazca people and compare it to the art of these ancient Japanese people, and man, are they close. But like I said, they have allegedly 7 different species, so there might be something that can survive in the cold and is made for that over there. What the hell would it be doing in Peru? I don't know. But
Speaking of the cold, we should do hot takes.
That
Right,
is a
Tim?
perfect seg if I ever heard one, right into hot takes. And we've got just a few hot takes, and I want to bring up the first hot take, and this is going to be for you, King. We've had a lot of people on this show, guests who are at special places in this world, and they're very sensitive to the cultural and the native people's connection to ancient relics or relics that are very special to them. Has anybody given any thought, I wonder, to the possibility of these alien mummies, having special social or cultural significance to anyone?
well, yes, and the thing is, I don't think anybody's fighting to like take them out. I think they're fighting to just have them acknowledged and have the same procedures you would do to any archaeological find. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what a lot of people are fighting for. Like, yo, just look, just test them and let's see what they are. But like I said, you got Mario, who's not very loved by the people in power, the government of Peru, and he's from the same culture. So I'm pretty sure if he came to Jameen about it, he could have sold them for millions of dollars. The word is he sold a couple, but he brought the rest to Jameen. So I don't. It's a hard situation to look because this thing could potentially change the history of the world and the culture of the world. So at minimum, if you don't want to take them out of the country, you gotta at least let the world come see them and study them.
That's a great answer. Now I think it is time for our hot takes. And by the way, did you know you listening to this could sponsor our hot take segment? Our old sponsor is not with us any longer. We love coffee. I'm just saying you could sponsor our hot take segment. So here's our first hot take for King. And I know you're going to have something to say. Just be careful. What's your hot take on UFO Twitter?
Oh, baby.
Remember, careful.
Order out of chaos.
Oh.
There is plenty of chaos, and the inner anarchist in me enjoys it. But you just kind of got to let these things play out. Let everybody do all their screaming. They'll get tired, and then we'll get some order out of that. And some people are just some people don't want to kumbaya. They want to have a little pizzazz in it, and you're always going to have those people, and we just got to learn how to work around or with them people accordingly.
Right. It is addictive, though, isn't it? In a very much a Jerry Springer kind of way.
Yeah, I had a guy talk to me for an hour about how he took the idea of cloud seeding and perfected it, and he had files with 100 million pieces of evidence, but he didn't download it, and the link broke. So you just get all types of characters, man.
Doggone it. Well, Blake, have you had any experience with UFO Twitter?
Twitter or X is a pretty strange place by nature. So I haven't had any experience with that particularly. I did have someone ask me once about, if I thought there was a place like that on the major platforms. I said, if there's a place for anything else, there's always a place for aliens.
Oh, you got that right. That's for sure. And King, actually recently, King was the host of some pretty historic spaces. And that takes us into our next hot take. King, what's your thoughts on the UFO Twitter, UFO whistleblowers?
Uh-huh.
And by the way, you might want to give everybody some quick background on that because I don't think anybody else here is exactly sure what I'm talking about.
Okay, so what was it now? 3 weeks ago, right? More or less.
Yeah.
We had a couple. We had Jason Sands. He came out, and before he came out, there was a couple guys that were associated with them, and I actually got to speak with them first. Now, me being the skeptic I was already, like you said, on a 11 hour, 12-hour stream. So they caught me at the back end. I was very tired, and I was just like, dudes, I don't believe y'all. He started coming in telling the story, and the other guy, and I was already going to cut the stream. So I was like, I don't believe you. I'm not trying to hear it. Turns out they were telling the truth. So I had to come out and do an apology. But Jason Sands and the UFO whistleblowers, man, I'm happy that he did it that way. And it sort of low-key started a lot of this chaos that we're seeing right now. And I'm a bit happy with it because it showed that not a lot of people can do a lot of their own thinking, because there was a lot of people looking towards Corbell or a lot of these key guys to see what they were going to say about the guy before they could even come out with their own opinion. And I don't like that. If you want to do critical thinking, look at the man's story, ask questions, and then come up with your own idea. And I feel with Mr. Sands, what they got to do is separate what he's saying. He's giving you his experience. That's what everybody has heard about, the blue aliens and stuff like that. But then he also had a job function that allowed him to get close to this program and understand what was going inside of it. So I think the most valuable information we can get is about his job function and how he was able to find this program. The experience and all that, a lot of people are interested, but that can come down the line when we get disclosure. I want to concentrate on his job function and those type of things that we can really sink our teeth into.
Right. Thanks so much for everybody for being with us tonight. We're joined by King Wakata and Blake Best. I said it real fast again. And we're so proud they're here. And if you want to support the show, we've got Super Chat and Super Stickers available. And our YouTube store is now live, or you can visit BigfootUFO.com. CJ Derringer's here with us tonight. Smitty Neves is back tonight. And this is King's first time on the show. Blake, he's returning for about the 27th time. I think I've got that approximately correct. And, I've got one more hot take here, and I got to get into this. We got so many people tuned in right now. We're in the triple digits. And
can I just ask our listeners to comment about the Jason Sands things? If you're listening and you know this Jason Sands story, do you think real or fake? Send us a comment. I want to know. Okay, continue.
Oh yeah, and by the way, Jason Sands, that's one of the epic things that comes out of Twitter Spaces, right? Things you won't get anywhere else, and you get them before anybody else. So David Grush, everybody's heard of him, right? UFO whistleblower. Jason Sands came out, UFO whistleblower, revealing, mind-blowing secrets for 11 hours and with King Wakata, for example. So this is the kind of stuff that can only happen, folks, on UFO Twitter. It has a lot of potential for harm and for drama and negative things, but a lot of potential for epicness. Yes, sir, King.
I didn't host a space where Jason Sands came in. I was in a previous space. Jason Sands came out with Rob Woods, I believe.
That's right. And, I actually want to give a shout out because I think UFO Intros was involved too. And UFO Intros is a friend of the show, and UFO Intros pops in here quite a bit. They haven't said anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're watching us. Just shout out to UFO Intros. And I know that they were intimately involved with the UFO whistleblowers too. But folks, our last hot take for tonight, and I think our listeners and viewers are going to really appreciate this. We haven't talked about this in a while, but the Las Vegas backyard aliens are back in the news.
Are they? How did
They
I miss this?
They are, because you don't watch the news. No,
Oh.
I'm kidding.
Did they
Good
hit the
point.
jackpot?
And I'm not on Twitter, and I don't do
Because you
anything.
ignored the text that I sent you about this story. That's why you didn't know. But yeah, they're back in the news because this is mind blowing, y'all. You have got to see this little clip I've got to play, because they have got a forensic expert to analyze the video. And I was always fascinated by the backyard alien story in Las Vegas, because it had it was like the Alien Mummies. It has so many moving pieces, because it wasn't just the dudes in the backyard, but it was also the police with the weird body camera footage, right? And the things streaking through the sky, and the 911 call. I mean, you know what? That's illegal, by the way. You can't fake something and call 911 and get the police to come out. That's illegal. And so that was never believable anyway. These guys, you could sense the real emotion in them. You could hear it in the 911 call. But this guy, he gives an analysis of the film. I think it's fascinating. Let's check it out. I'll pull it up here. So this is from a forensic expert on here we go. I've got it. Okay, where did I put that? Sorry, folks. There it is.
And look at whether or not there is an artificial artifact added to it or not. And in this case, we can definitively say, to a degree of scientific certainty, that this entity, this thing in the video, is there in the physical reality in which the Kenmore family is also there. Like, this is so critical, because you can clearly see through the slots in the fence that there is a leg motion moving from the right to the left side of the screen. And clearly it is behind there. So this isn't just like a head floating in space. This is a head of that is somehow that does not have full opacity, that the opacity of the head of the shadow is only at about 33% opacity, versus a normal shadow, which would be at 100% opacity, or an object in the screen, which is at 100%. And this isn't anything that you did. It's just what you were able to determine, that this shadow being, or this being in the shadows, possibly creating its own shadow or smoky filter or cloaking technique, is not only cloaking itself from the people there, but cloaking itself from the camera itself, in that it's minimizing our ability to identify pixels inside of that shadow.
I'm joined now.
What?
Nation, I've got so many thoughts, but I'm going to throw it to King first. What do you think?
I was one of those people that was thinking this might have been some type of psyop, because when it came out and became this thing caught fire like across the US in like less than 24 hours. And it was literally right before Grush and Dr. Greer did their presentations and stuff. So I always looked at this as like, oh, that's a curious timing to get everybody's attention away from what's going on over here. So that's the way I always looked at it. I mean, this right here, I haven't been keeping up with it, so I have to sit down and look at it, because that is strange. And, cloaking mechanisms is not something that is new here, or is like out of the pale that we've heard dealing with these things. This is pretty much normal for them, like we know they can cloak it.
Yeah. I mean, it just makes a lot of sense. Blake, what do you make of this?
Well, I like to say that sometimes the best place to hide is in plain sight. And as far as the cloaking thing is concerned, that I believe Joe mentioned it earlier in the comments. You know, speaking about cloaking things, and there's always been this consistent argument about things disappearing, the coincidences of Bigfoot being there and then Bigfoot not being there, something as large and lumbering and massive as that creature to be able to disappear at will. And then I actually had my own theories about a certain historical event, Roanoke, the disappearance of the Roanoke colony in the 1500s. I believe very much so that they may have been cloaked and taken away because they came to the New World and settled. And I think it goes with Nazca, Peru, that these aliens that we're finding the mummies of were brought there as surveyors, perhaps to take in the landscape and the terrain to see if it was going to be an applicable place for them to settle down in the travels. And perhaps they stayed to kind of formulate, theories and study the landscape, and then they died there. And those remains we found are the ones that were the surveyors that, because of the nature of their extraterrestrial biology, they didn't rot, or decompose, for lack of a better word. So honestly, with that footage, I could tell you I've been inside some places that were purported to be haunted, and I've seen shadow figures before, and I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. If a ghostly presence can pass through a wall or filing cabinet or a morgue table like I saw them do at Waverly Hills Sanatorium, then it's very, very easy for me to believe they could do that through a picket fence. Very easy.
Oh yeah.
So I think that is good footage, and I think that footage, I mean, obviously, is caught fire, for lack of a better word, across the world, and it's kind of taking the world by storm. But it goes back to what I said before. We knew they were here. It's the fact that others were trying to say they weren't is where the problem is. The truth is out there. I mean, to paraphrase, Chris Carter, and I really believe that there's a little bit of Fox Mulder in all of us, a little bit of Dana Scully in all of us, maybe a little bit of the Smoking Man in all of us too. We want to cover up what we believe because we want to protect our ideas and protect that we believe that there's something strange out there. And I think it's out of fear. And I think fear is one of the biggest controllers in society. You can't be afraid to share things like that. Open up, be a whistleblower, tell the truth, because the truth will stand when the world's on fire. And it may not be a truth that people like, but it's truth nonetheless. There's far too many lies out there anyway. So I thought it doesn't benefit these people to lie about this in any way, shape, or form.
That's right. They want us to obey, shop, get 8 hours sleep, wake up, go to work.
I would love to get 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah, same here.
Hey, that's what the government.
I'm going to obey.
The government wants you to do that, CJ. I promise you. Smitty, you know about the Las Vegas backyard aliens. What do you make of this forensic expert's analysis?
I don't know. I mean, it's pretty impressive because this is also, like I said, they're airing this before the whole world. This is a person who's an expert in their field, and I don't know. It gives it a lot of validity, it seems, because at first, they thought it was a hoax, but with this going on, and really, these people don't have a whole lot to gain by doing this. As we've talked about before in the past with every guest we've ever had that's experienced something, most of them didn't want to tell anyone because of fear of being labeled crazy or insane or something to that effect. So this seems to lend some validity to this incident.
Yeah, before I toss over to CJ for her thoughts, because she loves the Las Vegas backyard alien story, I have to say, y'all, how many times have we heard about Bigfoots with cloaking ability? About aliens, or not about aliens, but we've heard from astrophysicists on this show who tell us that UFOs seem to be able to cloak themselves, to manipulate matter around them so that they are more difficult to film and to photograph and to see. I mean, this just lines up with so many things we've heard on the show. It just blew me away. CJ, what's your thoughts on it? And then you're going to take us out, I think.
Sure. Yeah, I struggle with this one because I do love this Las Vegas alien backyard story, mostly because of the humanness in it all. I love connecting with people. I feel like it's one of my gifts is to understand people and what they're going through. And I tend to help a lot of people. And when I heard this boy in that 911 call, and then also heard the police officers and their reactions to the fireball that they saw in the sky and coming to this house, it all felt very, very believable to me. That was my initial instinct. I also was in a time of discovery in the UFO world where I was trending towards believing everything that I heard. I think I came into it as a total skeptic, didn't believe any of it was real. And then the pendulum swung to the other direction and I thought everything was real. And so now I'm sort of back in the middle, trying to weigh the balances. I still give a lot of validity to that story, mostly because of the family, mostly because of what their life seems to look like just from video and what have you, and maybe a couple of generations living together in one household. I'm not sure that they are the type that would want to draw attention to themselves for this sort of incident. So for that reason, I do give validity to this story. Now, as far as this new video, I couldn't tell you what the heck we were just looking at. I don't know what they were trying to show me. In terms of the forensics and the things, the colors on the screen, I was lost. So I don't know.
Just one thing.
Science.
This proves the theory
Science.
wrong that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. That
Yeah.
proves that theory completely wrong. Hey,
I mean,
honestly.
we're close to having cloaking devices too, so I don't think that we're too far fetched.
Absolutely. They've been cloaking our stealth bombers for years.
Yeah.
And CJ's from Palmdale, so she would know. I thought you were going to break into the song, CJ.
Palmdale, come back to me. I need you and I love you, baby. Afro Man, anyone? No one? Okay. Forget it.
Hey, we do have to encourage everybody, if they haven't seen one of Afro Man's latest videos about the pineapple cake, gotta check it out, folks. It's based on a true story. The cops kicked down his door, and one of the detectives is like checking out his mom's pineapple cake on the counter. Have you heard? King knows the story, I guess.
Shout out to Afro
But
Man. Go
Afro
check out
Man
that
made a
music video.
song in
I
the
heard
video.
it. I remember that when you start talking about it. Yeah, I remember.
It's fantastic. The video is just great.
Yeah.
So
good.
I think CJ's got
Yeah.
us heading into our
I
conclusion
think we've
tonight.
officially lost track, so it's probably time to call it a night, huh?
Well, when Afro Man comes up,
yeah, it's
it's either time to stay longer or time to call it. I don't know.
There's only two ways to go when Afro Man comes up. All right. Well, a special thank you to our guests, Blake Best. Always a pleasure. Do go check out his music, his books, all of the wonderful things that he is working on. And to King Wakata for sharing all of your information with us, for getting the conversation going on X, for keeping it going, for keeping all of our minds open. We thank you for that and for giving us your expertise on this very interesting subject. To Smitty and Tim, thanks for keeping me up late on a weeknight. I love it so much.
No problem.
And for those that shared your comments and questions with us, we are eternally grateful to you. Please do like, subscribe, share, comment, tell all of your friends, join us in all of our future conversations because we love having you. Tim.
Folks, tonight we've been on a global journey in search of alien mummies. That's right.
I think we just went to Peru and maybe Antarctica once.
No, Mexico, Peru, California. It's been a
Las
global
Vegas,
journey.
don't forget
Las
that.
Vegas. That's right. We went to Las Vegas. It's been a journey to many places around the world. But you know what? You don't have to go out there and travel the world to find the secrets of the universe. Just like Blake said, the truth is still out there. We totally believe that. That's one of our goals here at the show, is to get at the truth. We're not telling anybody where it's at. We're just here to present the information and get after it our own selves. So we want to encourage everybody, hey, you can be a part of getting after the truth yourselves. It might not be to find alien mummies, but you can get out in the woods. You can hunt for Bigfoot. You can get off your devices. You can go out tonight and look up at the sky and see what you can see. You can collect data on your own. The skies are not classified. That's what Avi Loeb told us. And you know what? If you go out, you get in the woods on your own, you go outside and you look up at the sky, you might not find a Bigfoot, you might not find an alien or see a UFO, but you might find something even more important, and that is yourself. Thanks, everybody. Smitty.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us, and thanks to all our listeners. And we're glad to have you at the All Things Unexplained universe tonight. And be happy, be strange, listen to All Things Unexplained. Good night.
And we do not condone hunting Bigfoot. Just that's what he meant. Look for Bigfoot.
Just observe, folks. Thanks, everybody.
All Things Unexplained.
What's your hot take on Travis Taylor?
I've got an exclusive for you guys if you want it about the Alaska.
We do.
Okay.
Dr. Taylor was revealed to be the chief scientist of the UAP task force with the Pentagon.
So some of that, I think, sir, will save for closed session.